So why don't you tell us a little bit about your role, the brands you oversee, and just about yourself, Greg?
Yeah, sure. My role, I'm the director of learning and development, which is a little bit of a misleading role, I think. I do a lot with the learning and development space within our organization, but I support ops quite a bit to our operations team, which kind of is where I get involved from a MeazureUp standpoint or with the AuditApp. Support the Ginos and D'Angelo brands, right, under the umbrella of New England Authentic Eats in the New England region. Gino's is a pizza concept, and D'Angelo's is a sandwich concept, both quick service restaurant space.
Awesome. And which MeazureUp tools are you currently using? AuditApp, Daily Checks, both.
Yeah, right now we use AuditApp. We looked at daily checks and decided that at the time, AuditApp met all the needs that we had. So we just continued to use AuditApp.
Great. And what was your operational assessment process prior to MeasureUp? How does it differ with MeasureUp?
Well, prior to MeasureUp, it was the old pen and paper, right? Not very efficient, easy to dry lab or, sort of fake, right? And became more of like a task for people to do rather than a process, right? So not ideal, not really in line with, what I think people expect out of technology today, right? So then we start using AuditApp and it gave us a couple of efficiency gains, pen and paper went away. There was a bit of a learning curve for some of the more tenured individuals who maybe grew up on pen and paper, but we got them to see the value of a electronic assessment, how things are stored, the efficiency of a quicker it was a quicker process to complete the assessments than it was in pen and paper, right?
And you kind of alluded to it there a little bit, but talk about what the biggest benefits of using MeasureUp has been for your role specifically, but then for the rest of the organization.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few benefits. I think efficiency is a big one. It's a time saver. You can configure the audits and the assessments to go in the order that is logical from a restaurant perspective, right? So if you're doing a product check as an example, we can configure it, so that it kind of follows the linear flow of how the product's laid out on the line, right? So you're not kind of going from one product to another on a checklist. You do it in a linear flow. That's efficient. I think the ability for us as an organization to monitor remotely, right? When it was a pen and paper assessment, you had to kind of go to the restaurant, you'd have to find it, you'd have to kind of look for the particular date you're looking for. And from an electronic standpoint, you get a really good tool from a reporting perspective with AuditApp that you can do completion reports and you can get a sense of how effective people are with those tools. And I just think from a standpoint of coaching and training and teaching, the tool it's an assessment tool, but you can craft the questions and um, the things that you're monitoring or measuring in such a way that it includes what the goal is and what the target is, and you can load images in those particular questions, and it can become a really great training and coaching tool as well. So I think that created a lot of efficiency for us and created a lot of buy-in because it wasn't just a, hey, I got you. This isn't meeting the standard. What the standard is and how to get there is included in the actual tool.
Perfect. And are there any specific features or components that you utilize the most? I think you mentioned a couple there, but just things like pictures or comments or action plans, the dashboard.
Yeah, I mean, the dashboard we use, I guess from a corporate standpoint, the dashboard gets used for our monitoring to make sure things are done. An example would be we have safety audits that need to be done in our New Hampshire restaurants on a quarterly basis, right? It's a requirement from a compliance standpoint. So we can get really good reporting against that every quarter to make sure it's done, right? That same tool, we use action plans at the restaurant level, right? So people do action plans to say, these are the things we reviewed on our safety audit. We identified that there was an opportunity to get a new floor mat because it was curling up at the edges, and that can be action planned out to make sure it happens, right? So, and then pictures, I think we use in the actual assessments themselves to kind of give people a visual example of what the goal is for things, right? A pizza quality assessment. What should a perfect pizza look like? Uh, on the other side of it, when we do our quality control audits, people use pictures a lot when they're doing the assessment to show what the actual result was to, again, do some of that coaching, right?
Yeah, those are very popular examples. Do you use the MeazureUp solution to identify company-wide problems? Have you seen any reduction in repeat issues? And if you have, just any examples?
Yeah, we do. It's more completion dashboard stuff that we'll look at. Our PQE is our product quality assessment, and we saw that we had probably an opportunity to do it a little more consistently in our restaurants, and that was kind of a recent example. And we used the completion dashboard to identify where we're falling short, and made a lot of headway pretty quickly just through highlighting the disparity on the reporting.
Glad to hear it. Are there any quantifiable differences that you've noticed since using MeazureUp? Sorry, any ROIs or any like other internal sort of metrics that you've found have been easier to evaluate?
I think just knowing what our operational assessment scores are was helpful. We do quality assessments, right? What do they call? We call them QC audits, quality control audits that our area managers will perform. I think that's helped, raise the operational, kind of consistency, but it's kind of hard to give you, like a quantifiable number because we didn't do that before, right? So we just know that, we're doing about an 85%, score on those particular evaluations, but not having them before, it's hard to compare it to something. In addition to that, we were, like I said, pen and paper before MeazureUp, so it was kind of hard to compare a report to something that would have been, on paper before.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense, especially if you weren't doing it before. Are there any just general comments or feedback that you want to share as kind of final thoughts?
Nothing that you haven't really asked. I think, we've been with MeazureUp for a while, and I think I've watched the tool evolve, and it's definitely, I think it was a great tool when we started using it, going from pen and paper to an electronic tool, and it's only gotten better as you've, become more mature as a company. So I think you guys have been a great partner and enjoy the partnership.